Did you ever wonder what's that one question type that you can practice regularly and learn one of the most helpful skills in PTE Academic that can help you master three of the most challenging question types in PTE Academic? A Retell Lecture is that question type, and the skill that can help you ace your Retell Lecture is note taking. And guess what? If you can master note taking, you will ace not only Retell Lecture but also Summarize group discussion and Summarize spoken text. Good day, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am Rashed from Ace Language. If you are prepping for your PT exam, you have probably come across the Retell Lecture task in this speaking section. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to tackle this part and share some tips to help you nail it on test day. Let's start with the basics. Retell Lecture is the fourth question type of PTE speaking module and PTE test. You will hear a lecture of 60 to 90 seconds. After the lecture, you'll have 10 seconds to prepare yourself. You will need to speak for up to 40 seconds. You'll have to retell the lecture in your own words. Lecture can be a video or an audio with an image. You will get 2 to 3 questions in each test. Score will go to both speaking module by 12.5% and listening module by 13.3%. Each question will have 16 marks. There are 3 marking criteria for Retell Lecture. Content has 6 marks, which you can get by using key phrases from the lecture. Fluency has 5 marks, which represents rhythm. Remember, fluency is not speed. Rather, maintaining a connected speech with no hesitation, repetition, and fillers. Pronunciation also has 5 marks, which means clarity. It is about pronouncing the words clearly, and you should not focus on accent. After the changes on 7th of August, this question type will now be rechecked by the human examiner. You need not to worry. Human evaluator will only check out your content, not fluency or pronunciation. They will specifically focus on illogical templates and keywords which do not express the meaning conveyed by the lecturer. Retell Lecture is actually a fairly straightforward question type. You just need to do the following. Number one, when you are listening to the lecture, you need to take notes, ideally 3 to 4 sentences. Once the recording is finished, retell your sentences with some connecting words. Then speak for at least around 30 to 35 seconds. Once you are done, click next immediately. Make sure you maintain a good rhythm and you speak with as less hesitation and mumbling as possible. You also need to make sure whatever you are saying is legible and clear. And that's it. If you can do that, you can certainly expect 90 in both speaking and listening. But why do test takers still struggle in this question type? It happens because they're not very good at note taking. And when I say not good, I do not mean that they cannot identify the important information of note taking. In fact, worrying about so-called important ideas or main ideas, however you want to call it, is the reason test takers struggle with Retell Lecture. So, what should be your approach? First and foremost, when you take notes, do not, and I repeat, do not worry about important information. You simply take note of the sentence that you can understand because that's what is the important information. And when you do take notes, simply ignore whatever else is being said by the speaker. Also, take notes using shortcuts and symbols. Avoid taking notes of auxiliary verbs, articles, prepositions, etc. to avoid wasting your time. Do not try to write in full words and sentences. You can never match the speed of the speaker. Remember, you are not required to retell everything or the whole recording. You only have 40 seconds to deliver your answer, and if you take note of 3 to 5 sentences, you will be able to speak them with joiners, and that will be more than good enough. Let's listen to a lecture and try to take notes when you are listening.
Declarative memory is a broad term which can include both episodic and semantic memory. An easy way to remember declarative memory is that you declare or communicate your memory to another. For example, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That is a declarative tidbit that some of you may have learned in school. Two other distinctions in the types of memory are explicit memory and implicit memory. Some psychologists refer to declarative memory as a type of explicit memory. Again, this is our ability to consciously recall facts and events. So we would say in some cases that semantic and episodic memories are types of explicit memory. We're able to describe and recall events and things that we've learned in the past.
Let's look at the notes I took. Firstly, I took notes of first sentence, and then what I did? I avoided all other information that the speaker was providing. I also used shortcuts when I took notes. Declarative memory was written decmem. In the same way, broad term became BRDTRM. Also, notice how I avoided writing down is, a, ob, and. This helped me write down the keywords that I can use in my speech. You don't need to use the shortcuts exactly as I did. You can use your own shortcut, which you feel comfortable with. The bottom line is, please use shortcuts and avoid using unnecessary words. Now that you learned how to take notes, it is time that you answered it. But you can see that my notes are not adequate to speak over 30 seconds. And I cannot use a generalized template either. So what do? I create and use my own structure. Structures are not templates. They are some groups of words that can help us formulate logical sentences without hesitations or mumbling. For example, I can certainly start my answer with this sentence. The lecturer was mainly talking about declarative memory is a broad term of both episodic and semantic memory. My next sentence can be and should be started with joiners, like I can use firstly or first of all or at the beginning of the lecture. My sentence in this particular case will be at the beginning of the lecture, the lecturer mentioned that in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, which is a declarative tidbit. In the next sentence, as we are going to emphasize more on what the lecturer said, we can use joiners that indicate importance or significance. For example, we can start by another key point, or more importantly, or maybe furthermore. To answer this particular question, I will say like this. Another key point the lecturer emphasized on was there are two types of memories, and they are explicit memory and implicit memory. Now it's time for the conclusion. And just like before, I will start with a joiner. I can start by saying in conclusion, or to conclude, or to sum up. My answer will be to conclude, the lecturer focused on semantic memory and episodic memory, which are examples of explicit memory used to call on events that took place in the past. So, it wasn't so difficult, was it? Let's now put all the sentences together and answer it as a whole. The lecturer was mainly talking about declarative memory is a broad term of both episodic and semantic memory. At the beginning of the lecturer mentioned that in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, which is a declarative tidbit. Another key point the lecturer emphasized on was there are two types of memories, explicit memory and implicit memory. To conclude, the lecturer focused on semantic memory and episodic memory, which are examples of explicit memory used to call on events that took place in the past. If you have listened to my answer carefully, you will understand that I did not try to answer with too much information or too many fancy words or vocabulary per se. I kept it simple, used simple words as were used by the lecturer, and tried to deliver my speech without hesitation or mumbling. Let's now try to answer another question. Let's first listen to the lecture and take notes.
It is almost impossible to talk about the history of the novel without starting with a definition of it, which is by no means easy to do. We all know what we ourselves mean by a novel and have our favourite novelists, whether they are from the heyday of Victorian fiction, Dickens, say, or George Eliot, or someone more modern or postmodern, for example, B.S. Johnson, who is famed for writing a novel that was bought in a box with loose pages that you could read in any order. Again, you might be a fan of crime or detective fiction, which brings the added complication of genre. That is, does the fact that a work of fiction is comedy, tragedy, satire, ghost story, and so on, affect our definition? Anyway, as far as the history of the English novel is concerned, we're on fairly solid ground when we date the first novels to the late 17th and early 18th centuries. The first that is still read as a novel, in the way we read novels now, is Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, which did have an enormous effect on English prose writing. But for me, it would be Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Now, people have tried to locate the beginnings even earlier than this, to Elizabethan prose writing, and even further back. But I think this is to lose sight of what a novel is and does, and confuses any kind of fiction with the true novel.
I hope you also took notes just like me, like you can see on the screen. Let's now compile the answer, shall we? The lecturer was mainly talking about it's almost impossible to talk about the history of novel without starting with the definition of it. At the beginning of the lecturer mentioned that history of English novel is on fairly solid ground when we date the first novels to the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Another key point the lecturer emphasized on was it was Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. To conclude, the lecturer focused on this is to lose sight of what a novel is and does and confuses any kind of fiction with the true novel. Did you hear what I said? Some of them didn't even make proper sense, but that's okay. Because I took notes and I cannot remember whatever I did not listen to. That's how easy answering Retell Lecture is when you take notes that you are happy with. This is a skill you must focus on to perfectly answer Retell Lecture, summarize group discussions, and summarize a spoken text. So there you go, guys. This is how you answer Retell Lectures in 2026. To sum it up, use your note-taking time pretty well so that you can answer flawlessly. Answer within 30 to 35 seconds. Maintain a smooth rhythm and pronounce the words clearly. Make sure you create your very own structure and do not, and I cannot stress enough, please, if you want to score 90 in both of your speaking and listening, do not use any templates, especially those that look easier. that is popular, and most importantly, that doesn't allow you to use content from the question. I want to end this video with this note that there is no alternative to practicing Retell lecture questions to perform well during the exam. Practice the question types that you find difficult, and during the exam, never lose your nerve. So, what are you waiting for? Start practicing today so that you can ace your PTE Retell lecture with ease in your next PTE exam in 2026. If you need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at 0188998291 in Bangladesh and 0456 446 963 in Australia. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one. Happy practicing, and I will see you soon.